Aune N7 here, which is 6,500 milliwatt of power. Now let's just find out why and when would you want to use this. I will not be spending too much time showing you the features or the configuration of this Aune N7 because you can easily read the specification on Aune official website, and also you can watch a video which I have done earlier unboxing it and doing a bit of walkthrough on the feature available for this Aune N7. What I'm going to do today is that pretty much going straight to the point, showing you some of the more important features which may be of interest to many of you. And also for the sake of, let's say, a perspective, I'll be comparing it also quickly with another very powerful DAC amp, which I have beside me here, which is Burson Audio Playmate 3. Starting with this, the build and the construction itself, premium, pure, Class A amplifier only. So which means that it does not have any kind of DAC component inside, and it will accept analog in or line in using dual XLR, which is fully balanced. There's also an option to connect to RCA. And it also offers a feature for you to do preamp. Should you wish to connect to another power amplifier for speakers perhaps, to amplify the signal before it reach your power amplifier. But for the sake of this review, I will only be talking about the performance, focusing on driving headphones rather than doing pre-amplifier, because N7 has been designated to serve both purposes. If you're familiar with Class A, then you know that Class A tend to run very hot. You see here, this Aune N7 is equipped with a very useful temperature gauge here. And now it is clad in blue, as you can see here, because it is running on low current mode. And at low current mode, I have been testing it quite extensively. It has been stable at around 44C. Okay, but if I do this, I switch to high current mode, then it will shoot up as high as I have seen it during hot day. I live in Malaysia, by the way, at around 48 perhaps, but still way under 50C. So I would say that that is pretty much very useful and impressive, considering that the heat sink around this Aune N7 seems to be quite effective. Now, you might be wondering, how does it apply to real life scenario? Because the temperature gauge here will only indicate what's happening inside, but not exactly what's happening outside. How does it feel to the touch, to the human touch? So let's just do this. I have a temperature gauge here, so I'm just going to do it like this, right? And you see there, it shows 39 when I touch it like this. And you might be wondering, how does other Class A amplifier perform? Okay, and this is Burson Audio Playmate 3. You see that? Definitely over 40 at almost 43C. And that is pretty much normal, because I can tell you on certain hot day, this Playmate 2 or even Playmate 3 would even reach as high as 50C. And now, just for the sake of curiosity, how does another Class A amplifier perform? Like this Hi-B R8, which I have here, which has been running for the last 1 hour together with all this. Okay, and Hi-B R8, okay, registered at around 38. All right, pretty much similar territory with this Aune N7. I would just simply say that I am impressed with the heat management. I have been switching this on high current mode, high gain, 4.4mm balance, and I am not seeing it exceeding anywhere beyond 50C. This N7 offers two different kind of output, the 6.3mm single-ended termination and the 4.4mm balance, the one that I use most of the time. And in this regard, I would definitely highly recommend that you should always use the 4.4mm balance, because if you look at the specification here, this 6.3mm single-ended termination would offer you less than 50% of available power, less than half, which is at 1,900 milliwatt of power. If you're getting N7, definitely you would want to run 4.4mm balance all the time. On to the most interesting part, the main reason why you want to have this monstrosity here, which is my first ever amplifier that goes beyond 3,000 milliwatt of power because I have always been using something like this, okay, which offer me an excess of at around 3005 milliwatt of power at 16 ohm. So this one definitely is the kind of amplifier which you want to have if you have something like this. Let me just show you. Sennheiser HD 600 300 ohm, okay, legendary headphone. And of course, some of you might remember this. Another legendary headphone, it's in its own right, which is Fostex T40 RP Mark III. Very difficult to drive. It is rated at just 50 ohm, but when it comes to magnetic planar, sensitivity is very low at just 91 dB. And of course, I have something like this here, which is Sivga Pang. I have measured this and this thing runs at around 360 ohm. And of course, I have another example here, which I would consider as, despite being larger than the other headphone, this 4C Audio i5 is in fact a bit more efficient to drive as compared to the other three. T40 RP Mark III, again, right? I needed volume at around, let me see here, 34 out of 99 when running this Fostex T40 RP Mark III on this Playmate 2, okay? And when I attach it to this Aune N7, which only have a maximum volume indication of 30, 16 out of 30, which means that I need to crank the volume higher at 53% versus 34% on this one. Now that is kind of a bit interesting, right? But you might be wondering, how does it transform to the performance itself? I was just merely referring to the headroom, okay, the kind of, let's say, loudness, but not the actual sound quality or sound density itself. And when I switch to this legendary Sennheiser HD600 here, running on this Burson Audio Playmate 2, I needed the volume at around 28 out of 99, okay? And for this Aune N7, I needed at around just 14 out of 30. Now let's talk about the sound and the performance itself. How does it perform and why would you want to have something like 6500 milliwatt of power? I'm just going to openly say this, okay? When I use it with something which is that I would consider as being efficient, I would just gonna simply say that both of them would be equally matched. Let's say you are driving something like this 32 ohm headphone, Kiwi Ears Ellipse, which is no more than probably around 32 ohm. Then I would say that both of them were already pushing it to the max at 100% because definitely this one would have already pushed at around 3000 milliwatt power and this one would have already pushed all the way to 6005 and that thing already maxed out. So if you're pushing anything under 300 ohm or even let's say higher than 100 dB, most likely both of them are just equally matched when it comes to quality, resolution, imaging, details, extension, and everything. Perhaps the main difference would be the characteristic of the temperament of the sound itself, the timbre itself. Because this one does appear kind of a bit more, let's say, analog sounding as compared to this Burson Audio Playmate 3, but I will talk a bit more on this on a separate video. So the most interesting part is that once you start pushing for power, and this is where things started to differ, especially when I go back to this Fostex T40 RP Mark III. The first difference that I'm hearing is that, of course, the density of the sound itself overall. Aune N7 would appear 10%, almost 10% richer sounding, driving this Fostex T40 RP Mark III to the fullest potential for the first time that I'm hearing it. Because all this while, I have always been driving this using up to 3000 milliwatt of power. And I thought that was already 100%. But damn, I was wrong. This thing is highly scalable. It will appreciate the more power I pump into it. Better sound density, better sound texture overall. Both of them, by the way, are already rich sounding. I am talking about minuscule differences if you start to compare them side by side. Because this thing is already more than capable of driving this, okay? And on top of it, the most audible differences would be on the lower frequency. I am hearing the kind of lower frequency performance, which I would say that this and this would appear a bit more tactile. The solidity of the mid bass all the way to the sub bass with the kind of extension which is very succinct, perhaps a bit 5% more as compared to this. And of course, the next difference would be the sound stage. I am hearing a bit more of openness, a bit more of airiness as exhibited by this Aune N7 when driving this as compared to this and this, okay? I am saying that both of them seems to be airy and open. I am just saying that once I compare them side by side, switching between the two of them, I am hearing that this and this would offer a bit of width and also expanse of the soundstage itself. And I would say that it is pretty much very consistent when I compare it against the other two headphone here, which is Simga Peng here, and also Sennheiser HD600, especially this HD600, because many of you would have known that this HD600 is not exactly great when it comes to soundstage, especially if you drive it anything under 3000 milliwatt of power, then you're gonna get something which is like, very narrow kind of soundstage. So in order to get a bit of that space, you need to push it at least with something like this. 3000 milliwatt of power from the Playmat 2, and you want to get the maximum soundstage, the openness and everything, you just want to have this combination here. And also, you might be wondering, being so powerful, crazily powerful like that, how about driving something which is sensitive? Especially considering that nowadays we have so many IEMs like this, which is BGVP Solomon or even T-Audio Monarch Mark IV, which I reviewed very recently. And you might remember that I did mention that some hybrid IEM, super sensitive hybrid IEM, does not behave well when subjected to too much power. But the good thing is that when I attach it to this Aune N7 and I still kept the high gain, I was pleasantly surprised because it does not exhibit any kind of floor noises at all. This thing is very good with clarity of the floor noises, meaning that there's no floor noises. That's what I'm trying to say. It is clean, it is black, which is also suitable for highly sensitive IM. It does not sound edgy, it does not sound shouty. So all in all, would I recommend this? Yes, definitely. But on a condition, you must remember this. Aune N7 is a dedicated, a purist amplifier only. You will need a good source in order to fully capitalize on it. And in this example, I have been pairing it with this FIO M21, okay, running full-time on line out, 4.4 amp balance. And also, I have been using quite a lot very recently my Hibi R8 Mark II, which also has dedicated line out. You need a proper source to fully maximize on the potential of this Aune N7. Thank you so very much for watching the video until the end. Without skipping, I hope. Now click like and subscribe, and also follow me on Instagram under the name of Andy AV. And also, if you'd like to support me directly, you can join the membership below for behind the scene, especially for AAV Insider and above, which will allow you to see what I am doing behind the scene.